All right, so taking a look at the weather tomorrow, what I like to start with is looking at the
he
general weather
insisted
forecast to
that was
see
the
is it
only
going to
way
be
I was
rainy, is
allowed
it going
to
to be
wear.
snowy.
Well,
See that
look
tomorrow
at
it's going to be increasing clouds.
Okay, why do you go to this website?
So I like NOAA just as a very general what's going to happen tomorrow. Is there even any point in looking at it more specifically? Like, for example, if we were looking at Monday, it's saying slight chance of rain and
Did you get the
snow.
new
That's
Tandem
probably
too?
not a good day to fly. The Saturday says
Not
increasing
yet. I'll get
clouds,
that
so
April
maybe
15th.
it's probably worth looking into better.
So
So
what's
like a
all the
good
other
first
gear?
start is go on the
What other
hourly
You said you had
weather
60 pounds
forecast.
of gear.
Kind of show us what's going on in a hour by hour segment.
Yeah.
So we see
And then Carl got
temperature's going to start off pretty cold. It's going to increase, which is
And it goes all the way to what?
it looks like
67?
it's at 2 p.m. It's going to get to 64.
That's
which-
like a pretty good temperature difference.
Yeah, it's a good temperature difference, and that 64 is a good number to remember. We'll come back to that in a minute.
Why?
When it comes to the lapse rate, that's going to be important. So we'll just remember that 64 for a little bit.
Okay.
The other thing to look at is the wind direction. We see that this is all just surface wind, and the surface wind looks pretty good. It's east. It's not too strong. We'll have to see what's going on up higher, but that's a good start. We see that the sky cover is going to start out clear, and then throughout the day it's going to get cloudier, so it looks like it might OD
At what time?
at like 4 or 5 or so. It could OD.
pretty late.
It might just get shaded out. We don't see any rain. We don't see any snow, so it looks like it could be a promising day. So the next thing I like to look at is the windy model to give us kind of the high-level overview.
I like this one. What altitude do you usually watch this or look at?
So I like to look at 14,000 because that's kind of the relevant altitude of our topography, and it gives you a high-level view of what's going on. And if you don't have these pressure ISO lines, those are helpful because that tells us where the pressure systems are. So you see, like,
I actually didn't know that. Where is it again?
so right down here, you can turn on the pressure on and off. This is useful because it shows that there's a high coming through tonight. And we'll look at, we'll see what it's going to do throughout the day, but we'll see at like 11 a.m. A little bit.
Dude, this is nice. Dude, you should see how cool
So it looks like there's actually sort of a weak low coming through, but we don't see like a big jet streak or anything, which is generally a good sign. So we'll look at something a little lower level, like 10,000. The unfortunate thing about
Cool. So we have. Where's this low heading to?
so the low is over Wyoming. I'm looking at just 11 a.m. to see what's
And just for
going on.
future reference, where is better flying? Is it usually in high pressure or low pressure?
Low.
You can get either. I think high pressure tends to be more stable and more clear weather. Low pressure tends to be more unstable. Low pressure can sometimes bring in a lot of moisture, so that may not be good. But I've had good flying days on both. What's
You want it
more
in between.
Yeah,
The one in between?
what's more important is you see up here where there's a bunch of pressure gradients really close together. If you're familiar with topographic maps, anytime you see those lines close together, that's shows a strong wind gradient, which means strong winds. So you can see like right here, all these lines are close
You
together.
want
There's
more
a lot of wind.
space.
So
And like down here, the winds, the
It's
lines
gonna
are
be
further
better
apart.
flying here.
So like over
perfect.
here, the
That's-
winds are.
That's good.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, so
Low-
tomorrow
low
we
this,
get
pressure
good flying.
this is a real good sign, and then
Scoot over a little bit.
Low
Yep.
pressure going to high pressure means decreased
Yep.
instability. It's
So-
becoming more stable. Whereas if it's high pressure moving towards low pressure, it's increased instability.
right.
But if
So
it's too unstable, too fast, then you get overdevelopment.
Yep.
So if you have just the right combination, like then you have like better use of the day.
right.
what are we looking at here?
Okay, so there's a couple things you can look at. You look at any one time, you can look at the different layers and altitude. Like we can look at 14,000 feet, which is a pretty useful metric for Colorado since that's how high our peaks are. And we can see like there's definitely wind up high, and like this wouldn't be a good high altitude hike and fly day. But it's not like we have a crazy jet streak over the area. We can look at 10,000, which is more relevant for Boulder. And we'll zoom in a little bit. And Boulder looks pretty good at 10,000. And you also look at the surface, and things look pretty nice. And then that's just at 11 a.m. So we'll also look at, say, 3 p.m. See what does throughout the day. And surfaces are going to be pretty south.
Cool. So, all right. So, what do we see? Tomorrow's going to be pretty much sunny. Clouds coming up later in the afternoon.
Yeah, that's what it's looking like. It looks like it's going to be fairly south, but not too windy, so that's promising. It seems like it's certainly potential. So the next thing I like to look at is the lapse rate. And I like to look at what the lapse rate is going to do throughout the day. So I look at this model, which can show up to 18 hours out. And we're interested in the Boulder Airport, which is code KBDU, to see how the lapse rate changes throughout the day.
Okay, why do you look at this one versus the XC Skies?
XC Skies is interesting, and it can be useful, but I feel like sometimes XC Skies is not always super accurate, and I feel like this gives me a more high-level view of what's going on.
But this is now, right?
This is a forecast, so this is all in Zulu time, and because daylight savings just happened, we're all at -6 Zulu. So, for example, 12 Zulu is 6 a.m., 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. We'll start at 10 a.m.
Okay, doesn't XC Skies get their information from the same place?
Yeah, it's similar. I think they use different models and except its own scaling factors. I think it's useful to understand we're looking at the lapse rate versus XC Skies.
Okay, and lapse rate. What are you looking for when you look into the lapse rate?
Right. So that's where you want to look more into how to read a skew-T diagram. We can go into that real quick. But we'll start at what the forecast says is going to happen at 10 a.m. And another thing that's helpful is we change this wind scale. So instead of seeing it up to 100 knots, we care about 40 knots. So this wind scale is more relevant to paragliders. So if you look at this wind over here, we see at 13,000 feet, it gets over 20 knots, and it's just stronger up high. So it's pretty windy up high, but between surface and 12,000, it's not too bad. It's a little windy, but not bad.
Is there a direction here?
Yep, and then right here, this shows the wind direction and speed.
So what you're looking at is little arrows, right?
Yep.
So if you think, the way that I used to think about it is like later is like little feathers, like arrow feathers, right?
Yeah, it's the direction the wind's coming from. So like this feather right here, so the wind's coming from the southwest.
Correct. Like the
2
arrow's
lines
going that
means
way.
20 knots.
Exactly.
And you can see that's reflected over here. So down low, this kind of region is what we really care about. And the wind's below 20 knots, which is pretty good for Boulder. The other thing that's I really like to look at is the lapse rate near the surface. You can see at 10 a.m., there's no inversion. If you were to back it up to, say, 6 a.m., you can see how the temperature is inverted, which means it gets warmer as you increase in altitude, which means that any surface heating is going to basically get stopped.
How high is 800 millibars?
So I think that shows up at the altitude. So we over here, 800 millibars is 6,000 feet, which is basically at launch.
Yeah.
So there's not a very strong inversion.
Okay.
And keep in mind, this is 6 a.m., so if we step through 7, 8, 9, it looks like by 10 a.m. the inversion breaks, which is really good. A lot of times we don't see that.
So what does that mean? We want to be at launch by 9:30, 10.
I would say like being on launch at 10 is a good place to be because you can start seeing what the weather's going to do. A lot of the times Boulder tends to do this morning cook where it'll start to get good and then it'll taper off for maybe a half hour, an hour, and then it'll turn on again. And that kind of depends on throughout the day, but we're seeing that the inversion will break at about 10. That's how it's forecasted.
And what's the altitude of the inversion?
Pretty low. It looks like the inversion's basically at
Say if you were to
launch.
go and take off from Sugarloaf, would you be above the inversion?
Definitely, yeah. Sugarloaf, I want to say, is at
So then what happens if
8,000.
what happens if you take off at Sugarloaf, stay above the inversion, and then you
Well, as long as if the surface is above the inversion, it'll get heated and it'll probably lift. But so you remember that 64 number that we talked about earlier at the surface temperature. So that's going to happen at noon. So if we go and we click on this graph and we find, let's say Boulder, the hill is at 50, the LZ is at 5,600, and LZ should heat up to 64. So we click on that point, and this gives us a test parcel. And it shows that parcel of air will rise to 15,000 feet, which sounds pretty optimistic, but it could be a really good day. And
Okay, can I show you what I do now?
Sure.
Okay. I usually never look at this, or I look at the CUT. I just show it.
Well, yeah, I'm almost done.
Really
Almost
cool.
done with this. I think the SQT shows the lap rate, and this is super promising because a lot of times a boulder has a strong inversion, which this doesn't show.
I can just message everybody if it'll be on tomorrow. Fine at 9.
Yeah, and Ty will just tell us what's good, but the fact that it's supposed to heat up a lot because there's not a lot of clouds early and the lap rate's good. I feel like there's a good chance that it's going to be working before 11 or so, and then it looks like the lap rate just gets better throughout the day.
By the way, when the blue lines and the red line touch, that means there's going to be clouds at that altitude.
Yep, and it's nice that these are spaced out, so it doesn't look like we're going to get a lot of high clouds. It's possible we could get some clouds later, but we just can't quite see in the model. So I like to confirm with XT Skies to see if it's showing the same thing, and now that we're close enough out, we can look at the high-res model. And let's start the high-res model and see if it confirms what we've seen. So, see, starting at 10 o'clock, we see a little bit of lift forming. At 11, it looks really good. This is showing...
Oh, interesting.
Wow, it's actually stronger than it was a little bit ago, so that model just updated. But it's showing 12 out of 7.
And then click at 12?
Which is really good at Boulder. If we do a point cast, it's showing 4,000 AGL on that model. That model's more optimistic than the others, but the high res tends to be the most accurate.
I actually didn't know about that.
Yeah, this is actually really cool. So 4,000 is extremely promising for Boulder.
Wait, but I usually do this. Can I show you something?
One last thing. Let's go to noon. So yeah, noon. You can see out here.
Okay, but wait, hold on.
Working.
Point cast again. Click
Yeah.
on the little circle.
Point cast.
So this is what I usually look at. This is my to-go-to is this. Because this one tells me all the information that I need to know for tomorrow. This is today, so scroll. That's going to be tomorrow.
Yeah, so we only care about today. So we'll zoom into a time scale. So you see, we're kind of seeing the same thing as about 10 o'clock. It starts turning on.
That's today.
Is that today?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still today.
Okay.
There you go. Saturday. There we go.
It's not really letting us scroll past. Yeah, we can't scroll past.
Because you're on the high. Change it to the RA. Yep.
Well, I don't like the RAP. I don't feel like that model's very good.
All right. Well,
I like the NAM. If I can't get the high res, I like the NAM 3. All right, so Saturday. All right, so let's zoom in. So it looks like the NAM is showing something similar. The top of the lift starts working, and at 11 it really starts getting better, and by noon it's basically full on and showing top of lift between 8
click on the GSF 30.
What time does it show it shutting down?
It looks like it's going to work until 5 or 6. So it looks like it's basically going to be all day. And then,
Is there anything that you see that's like a sign of risk? Any of these?
For tomorrow?
I haven't looked a lot later in the day yet. So here's the GFS, but I don't put a lot of stock in the GFS. I feel like the GFS is mostly a high level. Like, is it going to be rainy? Is it going to be windy? Like, it doesn't tell you a whole lot about any specific day. It just kind of gives you the overall trend. So I don't put a lot of stock into it. The GFS is generally agreeing with the other models, which is good.
And then click on the SQT.
And this seems to be a filtered SQT, but that SQT is showing similar results to the other model. And of course, the SQT is for the GFS. So if we skip to the NAM, it'll give us a different SQT. But they're all still positive. We're not seeing that inversion. We'll see the inversion earlier in the day.
So you're really not seeing any negative.
I don't see anything
tomorrow.
unsafe yet, but we haven't looked at the whole day yet. So one thing that's useful is we go back to the high res, which I don't think it'll let us see.
The high res is not available yet.
Yeah, I don't think it'll let us see the whole day. I think
What
we have
was
to wait until later.
the general discussion? Did they describe? I didn't look at any.
Oh yeah,
we
we
haven't
haven't
mention any overdevelopment in the discussion.
Yeah, we haven't looked at the discussion yet. Let me see if we can. Yeah, so we can't look any further into high res than noon.
Can you do a little bit wider? Like,
Sure.
I wanna see the state.
Yeah, so it looks like. Again, this is at noon. It looks like northern Colorado has a lot more wind. The central.
This is in kilometers per hour, by the way.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, that's why I thought it was stronger. So yeah, 12 kilometers an hour, which is pretty nice to launch in.
Yeah,
And then
it's beautiful. But look, I see something that's very cool. Can
Yeah.
I take over for a second? I like it when I see these east winds and these west winds merging together. Because a lot of times what happens is you get this convergence that sets up right above or close to Boulder. And it seems like here it's actually going to be a little bit further up into the mountains, right over Estes Park.
Keep in mind this is at the surface, so it's also good
Correct.
to look at maybe 10,000 or so to see if it's doing that.
Well, so there I changed it to top of left, and then you're going to be able to see where it merges. So it's going to be anywhere between Estes Park and the Front Range, is from what I see. So this is something that I keep trying to look at. A lot of times it sets up this way where you have this crazy looking convergence all the way from like northern Colorado, southern Wyoming, all the way down, which is crazy because, just to share a story, sometimes you can get into it. And for example, in one flight with Cedar, we flew for like 25, 30 kilometers straight, not one single turn, just in the convergence. And a lot of times it feels like it's overdeveloping, but it's just the convergence, from what I've noticed, which is pretty cool. That's one thing that I look at. And then what I'd like to see is the cloud.
Cloud cover is a good one to look at to see if it's going to OD.
Yeah.
You want to look throughout the day, so you can see like early on, it looks like it's ODing out over the mountains, but it's generally okay out front. And then we can look at like 3 o'clock and see how it's going to do later in the day.
So it seems like we're going to have a cloud cover like further up north into
This is on the
Wyoming.
NAM 12. We should
That
be able
could
to see
block.
higher res on the NAM 3.
That could stop the Wyoming push right there.
Well, that's the thing, right? So like everything that I look for is are we going to be able to head, or can we make it to Wyoming? And it seems like tomorrow, somewhere close to Fort Collins, you start to get a lot of cloud cover, right? You start here in Boulder, very, very little cloud cover, and then you have a lot of cloud cover south, right? So this is the percentage right here. 90%, 100% cloud cover in Denver, and then 100% cloud cover.
So Fort Collins is maybe the
I don't
goal.
know that it looks like a strong XC day. Like you go to Loveland, I think you're going to be kind of confined into this area.
Yeah. So maybe tomorrow we fly to Estes Park. You get right into that convergence and get in there.
Yeah.
Do you think going west is actually an option?
Let's look at the 14K winds and see what it's doing on the
It's
high
pretty
res
strong
model.
up here.
Can we go to 14?
Look at those we got those quadruple.
Yeah, so it's
flags.
super, super strong up high. I don't
Quad.
think it's a good day to be
Oh, I
flying
remember.
deep in the mountains because it's so windy.
How much do I owe for the bridles? Huh? How much do I owe for the bridles?
I like to see this. Usually this tells me pretty good.
Do they send you the gear and then
Gives
you
me
pay for it?
nice.
Yeah, I haven't gotten billed for it yet, so that's why I need to like make sure I'm on top of it. Okay. Do you have Venmo? I do. What's your Venmo username?
You guys done?
DYG2701.
Well, I'm just taking a look at the.
You gotta keep talking, otherwise.
Sorry. I'm just taking a look at the high end winds here at higher altitudes. You know, this model is not the best model because it's not fully updated.
How are the NAM 3 doing at top of lift
But-
in the front range?
I would send it to. I would go west.
You would go west tomorrow?
Yeah.
Too strong.
I would go west. I don't think you're going to be able to get high enough because it stops at 8,000. What is how high is
So that's
that?
the NAM 12, and if you
Are you
Take a look
you're
back
gonna
at
get
our-
high enough though, because you're going west.
You guys are going west
No,
tomorrow?
sometimes it doesn't get high. I mean,
So-
what is Sugarloaf? Sugarloaf's at what height?
I'd go west, but I don't
so
think
we
you'd
look
get
at
high enough.
go back to the high res model and
What?
look at
He
Boulder.
said I'd go west, but I don't think you'll get
Everyone
high
wants the
enough.
cloud cover. Want to see.
No, as far as wind
That's
goes.
above
You
ground.
will get high enough. This guy won't.
So you look at the difference between the models, and the high res is saying 4K AGL, the NAM 12, which was just less than 1600. So there's a big discrepancy, and in the short time scale, I always trust the high res model. So I think that looks quite a bit more optimistic.
Where this is a
And
hat.
if we're interested in top of lift, it looks like it's going to be a really south day. At the surface, it's still fairly south, not enough to be a problem. But it's probably going to shut. I don't think it's going to be a lookout. Well, Actually, I take that back. It looks like it's not as south of Lookout, so they may be okay. And south tends to work pretty well with Boulder. So I think that's going to work well. And then we get the top of Lift, and it looks like it's going to be really south. So it's not going to be a Flight of Golden kind of day, but it certainly could be a Lions XC day. And you could probably ride that south to Loveland.
Okay, so Lions would be a better option tomorrow. Then.
I don't think you're going to have good luck trying to go to Golden. You're going to be fighting a headwind, but I think Lions could be some low-hanging fruit tomorrow. You might be able to make it to Loveland. It looks like it's going to be pretty on birthday. We'll see if the NAM 3 confirm. Yeah, the NAM 3 agrees. A little less optimistic. But the lap straight looks good.
Awesome.
And then the last thing I wanted to look at was just kind of the late day development. So I want to see, are there any like strong winds that move in? And it doesn't look like it. It looks like it's basically just going to get lighter throughout the day. It may shade out. It actually does look like it's probably going to shade out later in the day. I don't see anything dangerous. It's probably just going to shut down. So I think it looks like a probably start early kind of day. Go north and maybe get to Loveland is kind of a realistic objective. I mean, it's only a model, so you never know. You might be able to go to Fort Collins, but this kind of day, I don't think it's not like a send it to Wyoming kind of day, but it definitely looks like it's going to be flyable. I think it's worth getting out there early.
One of the better days of the season so far. Forecasted anyway.
I mean, certainly it's a very, very promising day for early spring.
Sweet. So that's the weather for you guys. We'll see you tomorrow at the hills. Have fun, stay safe, fly high.